Okay, I got ahead of myself. We are talking about volume today. And volume is the amount of space that a three-dimensional figure takes up. Okay? And so down here it says the volume of a rectangular prism. That's what we're focusing on, rectangular prisms. The volume of a prism is the product of the area of the base and the height. I'll give you a second to write all that down. Okay, as a little review, remember when we are talking about a rectangular prism, I'm going to get my colors out again. Okay, remember, to be a prism, there must be two bases, and those two bases, those faces, have the same dimensions, okay? And there's only two, because I know some of us had struggled with trying to figure out what the bases were for your prisms. So this square right here, or rectangle, it's rectangle, sorry, and this one right here are the bases of this rectangular prism, because the other four faces have the same dimensions, and in a prism there are two bases that have the exact dimensions, and that's it. So if you find that you have three or more faces with the same dimensions, that's not your base. So volume of a rectangular prism and is the product, as we said, of the area of the base times the height. Okay, and I know in 5th grade you have learned about this, so we're looking more at this. We're going to say volume equals, you can say base times height, B, capital B, because that's the whole area of the space, or you can put volume equals length times width times height. Okay, both will give you the same product, and of course I like this one more. It's the standard tried and true. So yes, you can use a calculator on this. And so I need to find the volume of each rectangular prism. Okay, so when we think about volume equals length times width times height, do not get caught up in worrying like, well, which number goes with which variable. It's not a big deal, because in this case we are using the commutative property of multiplication, where it doesn't matter what order you multiply your numbers in, because it's still going to come out with the same product. So as I'm rewriting my formula, I'm just going to multiply my numbers across like that. Pull out my handy dandy calculator. 7 times 15 times 12. I get 1,260. My unit of measurement is feet. Now in volume, it is cubed, because we are filling the inside of my prism. And so in this case, one way I like to help you guys understand is that, well, volume, I'm multiplying 3 digits, so I'm going to go 3 here. And you know, with area, we multiply 2, so then squared. And then perimeter, we're not multiplying, we're just adding, you know, the distance around, so then we come up with nothing. Just something to think about to help you remember. And something else I'm going to do on number 1, just to remind myself as that it's a prism, okay? I'm going to identify my bases, and again, those are the two rectangles that have the same exact dimensions. Only two, okay? So you can see these are my bases, okay? Over here, if we were to take this rectangular prism and make it a net, two bases are the two faces that have the same exact area. Okay? So I'm going to say volume equals length times width times height. And I'm going to go with 29 times 8 times 3. Where I get 696 centimeters cubed. I almost put squared. Woo. Okay, look at number 3. I have another rectangular prism, and again, I'm just going to identify my bases. And no, it's not important right now at what I'm doing, but this is a good review as you're practicing working with rectangular prisms to remind yourself that rectangular prisms have two bases, which are faces that are exactly the same, only two. So again, I have volume equals length times width times height, and I get volume equals 13.5 times 9 times 4.8. I get 583.2 inches cubed. Okay, and then again, number 4, I'm just going to identify my bases. Times Okay, so number 5, it looks like it would be a cube, but as we can see, our measurements are not exactly the same. Remember, a cube would have the same length, width, and height, and in this case it's not, but it looks like it would be. But I can tell you right here, these are my bases. Volume equals length times width times height. Volume equals 4/5 times 5/8 times 1/2. I'm going to put that in my handy-dandy calculator, and yes, you know how to do fractions. So you can do fractions times 5/8 times 1/2. Simplify, simplify, whoops, nope, delete that. Simplify, 1/4. So we get 1/4 inches cubed. And then number 6, I have 3/4 times 2 2/3 times 1 5/6. Then again, I'm looking at this particular example, I'm not going to shade it because it would take up, I would color almost the whole thing because the top and the bottom right there are your bases. Okay. So 2 2/3 times 1 5/6 times 3/4. Now we will be reviewing multiplication, division of fractions. What on a calculator? Oh. So 2, 3 times 1 5/6 times and then simplify, because I always require you to simplify, so 3 2/3. 3 2/3 yards cubed. Okay, so we are here with finding a missing dimension, and this is where our algebra skills come in that we have been working on. A rectangular prism has a length of 12 inches and a width of 7 inches. If the volume of the prism is 1,512 cubic inches, find the height of the prism. Cubic means, third, to the third power. So we are going to write our formula. Volume equals length times width times height. So we're going to write an equation with the data that we have. And we know that our volume is 1,512. So I'm going to say 1,512 equals, and they give me my length of 12, and they give me my width of 7, but they do not give me my height. So what we just did was we wrote an equation with the data that we have. And I always say, start with what you know. So we filled this in. So we're going to simplify this equation. We're going to combine like terms. So I know I can do 12 times 7. Is that 84? Isn't that terrible? Yeah, that's right. 1,512 equals, I've combined these two, 84, and then times my height. Now remember, when you have a coefficient stuck to a variable with no operation, that means to multiply. So now I have a multiplication equation, and I need to isolate my variable h. And to do that, I need to do the opposite or the inverse of multiplication, which is division. Okay, so I have 1,512 divided by 84, and I get 18. Okay, so looking at my units of measurement, h equals 18 inches. Now, this is a missing dimension. This was not finding volume, I was finding one of my side lengths, and that's where I came up with that. So, number 8 gives me a picture. If the volume of the prism below is 855 cubic feet, find W. So just like over here, number 7, except they give us a picture. So I know volume equals length times width times height. And I know 855 equals, my length is 20, times my width times my height. Okay, so we're going to again combine like terms. So I can multiply 20 times 4.5, and I get 90. So I have 855 equals 90 times W. And again, I have fallen into a multiplication equation. To isolate my variable W, I'm going to divide both sides by 90, and I get 9.5. So my width equals 9.5 what? Feet. Do not forget that unit of measurement, just feet. Okay. Number 9 says Elijah is pouring sand into a glass cube with a side length measuring 2.5 inches. How many cubic inches of sand can he fit into the cube? Here is the question. The magic vocabulary word right here was cube. And I know that we did this in our notes. There was a prism we had that had each side, the length, width, and height was all the same. And so that tells you that that's a cube, which is also a square prism. So if I know that, so volume, I'm going to write this, so are you. Volume of a cube or square prism is side length S to the power of 3. In this case, my side length is 2 5/10. So you can do 2 5/10 times 2 5/10 times 2 5/10. or you could do 2.5 to the power of 3, whichever you want. What I'll do that in my calculator. 2.5, don't forget my caret to the power of 3, and I get 15 and 625 thousandths. 15 and 625 thousandths inches cubed. And so that will tell you how many cubic inches of sand he can fit in the cube. Okay. Number 10, a dump truck has a rectangular bed full with soil. If the bed measures 16 by 8 by 4.5 feet and the soil weighs 75 pounds per cubic foot, find the weight. Okay, so what we have here is, think of that dump truck, and you have it full soil, and think if it's leveled out. There's not a space missing, and it's not overflowed. Okay, so we're going to write down what we know. Volume equals length times width times height. Okay, we have to find the volume before we can figure out how much it weighs. Okay, because volume and weight are two different things. So volume equals 16 times 8 times 4.5, and we're going to write this down. 16 times 8 times 4.5. 576 feet cubed. So that's the volume. But over here, the soil weighs 75 pounds per cubic foot, which means per 1. So I would say 576 times 75. That's heavy. That's heavy. So times 75. Whew. Wow. That is 43,200, and your unit of measurement here is pounds. And that is all for the volume of a rectangular prism.